This is the Citizen Link Report.
If you find our insights helpful, would you support our video efforts? Your gift of $25 or more goes a long ways. Covers the crew, lights, cameras, all that. Just click on donate. Thanks from all of us.
Iowa will no longer allow telemed abortions, and an Oklahoma lawmaker stands for life in a very tangible way. This is the Citizen Link Report. Hi, I'm Kim Troby, and I'm joined today by Carrie Gordon Earl, one of our analysts with Focus on the Family. Hey, Carrie.
Hi, Kim.
All right, well, today we want to talk about another aspect of the life issue, and that is telemed abortions. Iowa's Board of Medicine voted to end the practice. This is a real victory for them.
You know, it really is. This has been something they've been working on for several years, and it was a community effort. It was across the state of Iowa. They had more than 20,000 Iowans that signed petitions in recent years. You had physicians that have come forward to really put pressure on the State Board of Medicine to ask why they're allowing this type of abortion to take place. And this is an abortion that deals with RU486, so it's a chemical abortion.
Carrie, there's going to be people watching, I know, who say telemed abortion. This is a new thing for me. What are they?
Well, a lot of us on our computers at home may have a Skype camera, right, for teleconferencing. You may use it to visit friends or grandkids. Well, this is kind of abortion by Skype. What you have is an elaborate camera that's attached to a computer through the internet. And what happens is really unusual here because you have the abortionist not at the abortion center where the woman is, where you would go to the doctor, you would have a physical exam. That doesn't happen with this kind of an abortion. The doctor in this particular instance is in another city, and then you have more kind of remote locations. So a woman would go into the remote location and want to have this kind of a chemical abortion using RU486, and the doctor, the abortionist, would be at another location. Once he talked to her, he would press a button, release a drawer that would unlock, and the woman could have access to the drug. So to say telemed is to talk about kind of a telecommunication type of medicine, and webcam is to use like that little Skype camera on your computer.
Okay. I'm no expert. I don't claim to be an expert, but that sounds really, really dangerous to me.
Well, it can be, and you need to look at what's happened in Iowa. We talked about how this was such a victory for Iowa Right to Life, for national groups that have also tried to put pressure to get the Board of Medicine to look at this. Because what you have here in Iowa, they've really pioneered the idea of webcam or telemed abortions. They started it in 2008, and one thing that's happened, Kim, that's important here is we have seen through the years a decrease in the number of doctors willing to do abortions and a decrease in the number of abortion centers. The industry is shrinking in some ways, and they're looking for ways to try to increase that market share again. So by coming up with this, Iowa's been the pioneer. And because it's more of a rural state, if you can't get to Des Moines, where the abortionist is, but you can be in one of the remote locations kind of scattered across the state, you could still have a chemical abortion, and to do that with the blessing of the state. So what's happened here is the board has said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Now, is this dangerous? RU486 is always dangerous for the baby, and it can be life-threatening for the mother. Now, deaths due to RU486 are kind of hard to track because it's generally infection, which can be listed as something else on the death certificate. But we do know of more than a dozen women in the United States that have died due to complications from RU486. We know that the federal government, the FDA, changed the warning label on the box a few years ago because we had a string of deaths of infections. So to try to suggest that this is a safe abortion in the sense that the woman is never examined by the physician, there's never contact between the woman and a doctor at any point here. The Iowa Board of Medicine said, no, we're not going to do that. That's not responsible. So again, big hat tip to Iowa Right to Life. The folks in Iowa, they worked really hard on this, and it's just good common sense.
Yeah, congratulations to them. It's just a wonderful victory for life. And you know, there are so many alternatives to abortion, like adoption, for instance. I love this next story. Oklahoma Representative Mark Wayne Mullen and his wife, Christy, just adopted a set of 2-year-old twins. You can see them there on the screen. Mullen says the transition has been seamless and that God's timing is always perfect. And you know, Carrie, adoption is a great alternative and a great way to give kids a forever family.
Well, it always has been, and we look at the history of adoption in the United States, and so often in the pro-life movement, we tie that to a woman who's in an unintended pregnancy, who doesn't want to continue the pregnancy, and we'll say, you know, there are families to adopt those children, and there are, and those are infants, and sometimes those are easier to place than the older children. So what this wonderful legislator and his wife have done is taken in some older kids, and that's the beauty of adoption through foster care, because there are so many children that do not have the opportunity to have a mom and a dad. And when you talk about being pro-life, you know, you need to think of the whole picture. So we really applaud them and others that are opening up their homes to bring these children in.
And Focus on the Family has a campaign called Wait No More. Wait No More will be traveling to California on September 14th. It'll be at Saddleback Church in Lake Forest, and you can learn more about it by visiting the website icareaboutorphans.org. That's icareaboutorphans.org. Well, Carrie, thanks so much for following the life issue for us. I always appreciate your insight.
Thank you, Kim, for the invitation.
And thanks to all of you who have written to share your thoughts and your encouragement. You can always contact us at mail@citizenlink.com. And of course, we encourage you to pray for our elected officials and our nation. And remember, stand tall and be heard.